people tend to assume that women like myself who have achieved a lot in terms of careers and my own dreams, and I've been very lucky and privileged to be able to do that, they often assume that you don't have doubts and that you haven't got vulnerability and that you aren't capable of being reduced back to a 6-year-old being in the corner in the playground with no friends. But actually that's not true. I think that your own bubble can be burst still quite quickly. And on one level, that's a good thing that it can happen, because if you're too hubristic, you know, if you couldn't be made vulnerable, then I think you'd be a bit of a megalomaniac. But I think there's a difference between maybe a friend pointing out to you that you might have got a bit cocky, or somebody saying to you, you know, you're a bit thoughtless, which power can do. And I think that's a very important check that should make you go back and reflect for a while. And then another kind of pushing you away, which can be deliberate, and you can be a casualty of a kind of sense of not belonging, not being wanted, not being included, not being appropriate to that place. And sometimes that is also done casually and thoughtfully, and sometimes it's done very deliberately. And I would say it's done more regularly to women who have power than people might realize. And it's because you have power that sometimes that can produce quite a vindictive streak in people. So because I'm very aware of how systemic power has operated through thousands of years in society, it is true that women have been brought up to believe that being too assertive, too noisy, too powerful, too ambitious, too successful are negative attributes. And so one thing that happens to me occasionally is that somebody will react to me, and it tends to be men, but sometimes it's women, but it tends to be men. They'll react to me as if my presence is too pushy, and that actually they found that an irritant. There's a kind of irritability that happens. And then if you directly measure it against other conversations that are happening in the same group that are with other men, you can see that actually something about being a woman with that voice is getting under their skin. Now, you'd think that would just produce a kind of, well, that's your problem, mate. And sometimes it does. But it's amazing how the sort of internal dialogue that you've had with yourself since you were little, when you were first called precocious or pushy or noisy, or, oh, she's a bit ambitious, isn't she? Those sorts of things that are used about girls, they stay with you. And so I find I can be pushed back into a box sometimes quite quickly if I think that somebody just doesn't like me or thinks I'm a bit uppity or a bit mouthy or so on. And it's a problem, because it means that you sometimes self-isolate in defense to protect, when actually you just need to stick your ground. I think, you know, an additional problem in that will be, maybe I'm from the north of England. I have a northern accent, or something of a trace of a northern accent, none of which I mind. I'm very proud to come from Liverpool. But it would be an illusion to think that in the UK we still don't have traces, and sometimes very strong strands of class attitude. And so the kind of Oxbridge and kind of semi-aristocratic upper middle class assumptions that sometimes are sort of put onto you as a northern person and as a northern woman can also produce in you a sense of insecurity. And then of course you are crossed with feeling insecure because you think that's silly, but it starts a kind of turmoil which can make you think, I'll just back out at this point. And there's one more thing which might make people laugh, but being 5'2". So being 5'2", if you are trying to hold your own and you're constantly looking up at maybe 3 people, they tend to be men, sometimes they can be very tall women, but basically if you're endlessly looking up trying to catch the eye of people who are talking above you because they're all 6 foot and above, then sometimes you just think, actually, I'm too small for this conversation, literally, and I'll back out, because you feel weird sort of trying to jump up to get people's attention at their eye line. So I would say those are the 3 things: being northern and the assumptions that are made about that, being a woman and the attitudes that come with that, and being small. But I want to say this, that knowing those things makes me, I hope, really, really attentive to the fact that at the same time I carry this privilege. I am a white woman. I'm a cisgendered woman. I'm a heteronormative, able-bodied woman who has had an education and has had a successful career. And so I try to make sure, knowing that my vulnerabilities are such as I've described, that I don't then make other people who will have their own version of what I'm talking about feel insecure or unwanted because of thoughtlessness on my part, or a kind of entitlement that I'm not aware of. So, yeah, knowing that I can be put back in my own box is not a harmful thing. It just hopefully produces empathy about the boxes you might be pushing other people into.